We are a peaceful people. Struggle is with struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow.
Gathered together, do most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, thine aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, we have circulated two documents today. One is a very comprehensive report of the international engagements of the 12th Parliament, and accompanying that, the cost of those engagements. When I became Speaker and I looked at the international parliamentary associations that we belong to, I thought that we should not only decision-making bodies of these organizations. And in this regard, Guyana holds the presidency of the geopolitical group GRULAC, 26 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. Your speaker sits on the planning committee of the Speakers Conference of the IPU. He also co-chairs with a member of the European Parliament the IPU engagement with the World Trade Organization. In the Caribbean, we held the chairmanship of our Caribbean Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and we also sit on the executive of Parlamericas, the parliamentary grouping of the OAS. And last year, we took over the regional secretariat of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Caribbean branch, and our clerk is the secretary of that grouping. I wish to thank all members of Parliament who fully participated and the staff engagements. You have another document which outlines 2 years later to the regional competitions. As of today, we have conducted 158 debates, and by the end of the nationals, which starts next week, it'll be 176 youth debates, the longest running. My very special thanks to Minister Ramson and Minister Manichan and the two ministries, along with the regional officials, for coordinating, assisting, and fully supporting these efforts. With respect to the youth parliament, we have held every youth parliament since this 12th parliament convened. And not only that, our outstanding youth parliamentarians have participated in youth debates in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos, and they have gone as far as New Zealand to represent our youth parliament at the Commonwealth Youth Parliamentary Association. Again, for these debates and the youth parliament, so many persons to thank: our staff, parents, teachers, mentors, judges, and especially many of you who serve as coaches and mentors for the youth parliamentarians. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports.
Governance. Audited financial statement of Guyana Wildlife.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to get the speakers list finished. I wish to present to the Assembly the audited financial statements of the Guyana Wildlife Conservation and Management Commission for the years ended 31st December 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Clerk.
Oral questions without notice. Questions on notice.
People. All of these questions are in the name of the Honorable Member, Ms. Annette Ferguson, and are for written replies. Questions 1 and 2 are for the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water, and the answers to those questions have been circulated. Questions number 3, 4, and 5 are for the Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and public service. The answers to these questions will be deferred to a later date. Mr. Clerk.
Statements by ministers, including policy statements.
Honourable members, in accordance with Standing Order number 28-2, I have given consent to proceed with the following motion at this sitting.
Did I? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to move the following motion. Whereas in accordance with the Standing Order number 112, any one or more of these standing orders may be suspended. And whereas the government is desirous of its motion on support for the government and people of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, reaffirming the sovereignty of Guyana over its internationally recognized territory, to stand as the first item of public business at the sitting of the National Assembly on Friday, the 23rd May 2025. Be it resolved that a standing order number 112 be suspended to allow the motion to stand as the first item of public business. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, I now put the motion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Ayes have it. The motion is carried. Mr. Clerk,
Introduction of bills. Public business.
and international cooperation.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with the solemn duty and profound honor to move a motion reaffirming the sovereignty of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana over its internationally recognized territory. This matter is beyond geography or cartography. It is of history, borders we inherited are lines. They are not the product, they are the product of international agreements, arbitral awards, and the rule of law, respected by the international community and upheld by the values of peace and justice that we subscribe to as a nation, as contained in the United Nations Charter. Mr. Speaker, the Guyana-Venezuela controversy remains the paramount threat to not only the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Guyana, but the continued political independence of this great nation, its economic aspirations, the social development of our people, and their human right to live in a country that is secure, free from fear, without the constant threat of violence, coercion, or oppression from external forces. Guyana has faced this threat from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela even before our nation attained independence on the 26th of May, 1966. Then, from the very moment of our emergence as a sovereign nation, Venezuela relentlessly sought to assert its baseless and expansionist claim to our Essequibo region. More than two-thirds of our national territory, in furtherance of our rejection of the 1899 Arbitral Award, a legally binding international decision that definitively settled the border between the then British Guyana and the then United States of Venezuela, and that the latter recognized and accepted as a valid and binding for over 60 years from the time of its issuance until 1962. Since the government took office in 2020, Venezuela's threats, intimidation tactics, and illegal actions have grown more frequent, more desperate, and more intense. This in an effort to force Guyana to abandon the process before the ICJ and return to the negotiation table with Venezuela. On December 18, 2020, following the issuance of the International Court of Justice ruling that it had jurisdiction to hear Guyana's case on the validity of the 1899 arbitral award, Venezuela's National Assembly adopted a resolution rejecting the jurisdiction of the court. This action defied the Geneva Agreement and signaled Venezuela's refusal to abide by international law. On January 7, 2021, President Nicolas Maduro issued Decree number 4415, unilaterally claiming Venezuela's sovereignty over Guyana's maritime space, including its exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, and the continental shelf. This directly violated the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and General International Law of the Sea, and breached the Geneva Agreement's requirement that for there to be no enlargement of existing claims. On January 21, 2021, the Venezuelan Navy intercepted and detained 2 Guyana-registered fishing vessels, Lady Naira and Sea Wolf, along with their crews within Guyana's exclusive economic zone near Winey Point. This constituted a clear violation of international law and demonstrated Venezuela's use of illegal, coercive tactics. Mr. Speaker, in March 2021, Venezuela's armed forces announced the creation of an integrated defense zone near Guyana's maritime space and deployed military assets to the area. This violated Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter relating to the threat of the use of force. Throughout 2021 into 2022, Venezuela escalated military activities along the border with Guyana, including low-altitude flyovers of troop mobilizations near the Cuyuni River, breaching Guyana's airspace and adopting an aggressive posture by mobilizing military assets. Late 2022, Venezuela intensified domestic propaganda campaigns promoting sovereignty over Guyana's Essequibo region. This laid the foundation for a referendum held on December 3, 2023, with the aim to garner public support for the creation of a state of Guyana Essequibo and the incorporation of that state into the map of Venezuela, dismissing the jurisdiction of the ICJ as a means of settlement to the controversy. The Venezuelan National Assembly passed a resolution on September 21, 2023, calling for a referendum regarding enforcement of Venezuela's claim, so-called claim, to Guyana's Essequibo region. Mr. Speaker, on the 24th of September, same year, 2023, 3 fighter jets from Venezuela's Bolivarian National Armed Forces conducted flight maneuvers over the Guyanese community of Etteringban on the Cuyuni River. In October 2023, or the 23rd of October 2023, Venezuela published 5 questions to be answered by the people of Venezuela in the referendum scheduled for the 3rd of December 2023. The most egregious questions that were put to the Venezuelan people sought to determine whether they agree with the creation of the state of Guyana Essequibo, the incorporation of that state into the map of Venezuela as and Venezuela's historical position of not recognizing the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice as a means of settlement of, of the controversy. Mr. Speaker, on November 1st of 2023, Venezuela reiterated its claim to our Essequibo region, challenging the ICJ's jurisdiction. These statements were condemned internationally, which sought to discredit the court and undermine international legal norms. The 1st of December 2023, the ICJ issued binding provisional measures ordering Venezuela to refrain disturbing the status quo in which Guyana administers and controls the Essequibo region, our Essequibo region, and to refrain from escalating the territorial controversy. Mr. Speaker, within 48 hours, Venezuela violated that order. On December 3rd, 2023, Venezuela held a consultative referendum supporting annexation of our Essequibo and proposing the creation of a so-called new state, Guyana Essequibo. Mr. Speaker, on the 6th of December 2023, Venezuela initiated legislative and administrative actions to enforce the referendum's results and create a so-called Guyana Essequibo, defying International Court of Justice order. On the 9th of December 2023, Venezuela completed and inaugurated a Venezuela continued advancing the referendum's results, ignoring international condemnation. In late of 2023 into early 2024, Venezuela engaged in sustained aggression, including military deployments near the Guyana border and anti-Guyana propaganda, and first hinted the potential inclusion of our Essequibo in Venezuelan elections. Mr. Speaker, on January 7, 2024, Guyana protested Venezuela's interference in the Milo Falls Hydro Project through a note reaffirming the project's execution in Guyana's sovereign territory. On March 15, 2024, two Venezuelan aircraft flew over Guyanese territory in Embotero, violating Guyana's airspace. On April 3rd, 2024, Venezuela passed an organic law for the defense of the so-called Guyana Essequibo, attempting to formalize its claim to our Essequibo in violation of the ICJ's provisional measures and the Joint Declaration of Argyll. Mr. Speaker, on August 19, 2024, Guyana protested via a note verbal Venezuela's military activity and preparatory work to reconstruct a bridge connecting Ancoco Island to its mainland, further militarizing the island where the boundary between the for the fictitious Guyana Essequibo state for the so-called elections. Mr. Speaker, on May 2nd, 2025, Venezuela rejected the May 1st order of the International Court of Justice directing Venezuela to refrain from holding elections in Guyana's Essequibo region. Venezuela called the order a statement and declared its refusal to comply with any decisions from the court on the Essequibo matter. Mr. Speaker, in each and every situation that I mentioned here where Venezuela violated our territorial integrity, we took immediate, decisive, and strategic action. We first lodged a protest with Venezuela. Secondly, we reaffirmed the International Court of Justice of the belligerent actions of Venezuela in a matter that is currently before it. The court now possesses a chronicle of all of the actions of Venezuela that represent an affront to the said court's jurisdiction and a breach of international law, which it can use in arriving at a final decision in this case. Thirdly, we informed the United Nations Secretary General. The Secretary General has a clear picture of the increasing belligerence of Venezuela in the furtherance of its illegal claim to Guyana's territory. Fourthly, the entire diplomatic mechanism within the Foreign Ministry is engaged on a two-pronged basis. The Ministry engages its international partners on the issue, including key international organizations like the CARICOM, the Commonwealth, the Organization of African, Asian, and Pacific, African, Caribbean, and Pacific states, the European Union, and other states on a bilateral basis. Further, all of Guyana's missions abroad, including honorary consuls, received instructions and the technical support that they need to engage their host countries and countries that they are accredited to on this issue. Mr. Speaker, Guyana currently has diplomatic representation across the world. It therefore means that we are engaging several parts of the globe on this issue. We will continue to ramp up our diplomatic representation abroad. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry also, in the spirit of transparency, makes public statements on particular issues regarding the controversy that it is at the time engaging. We have significantly intensified our legal and diplomatic efforts to preserve our sovereignty and territorial integrity in response to Venezuela's escalating claims over our Essequibo region. Mr. Speaker, on the legal front, you're aware that in March 2018, Guyana filed an application with the International Court of Justice instituting proceedings against Venezuela, in which it asks the court to determine that the 1899 arbitral award is valid and binding to both states, and that the lawful international boundary is the one established by this said award. Mr. Speaker, the court determined that it would first decide on the question of jurisdiction. Following written presentations by both states and oral hearings on June 30th, 2020, it issued a decision, that is the court, on December 18, 2020, that it had jurisdiction to hear the case on the merits of Guyana's application concerning the validity of the arbitral award of 1899 and the related question to the definitive settlement of the land boundary between the two countries. Venezuela condemned that decision without justification as biased and irregular. However, that decision is binding on both parties under international law. On March 8, 2022, in accordance with the court's scheduling order, Guyana filed its memorial on the merits of its case against Venezuela. In response, Venezuela filed preliminary objections to the admissibility of Guyana's claims on June 7, 2022, urging the court to exercise its discretion to refuse to rule on those claims. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules of the court, the proceedings on the merits were suspended until the determination by the court of the matter of Venezuela's preliminary objections. Guyana submitted its written response to the preliminary objections on July 15, 2022. The court heard oral hearings from both Guyana and Venezuela, and Venezuela's objections over the period November 17th to the 22nd, 2022, and on April 6th, 2023, gave its judgment on Venezuela's objections, which is final, without appeal, and binding on the parties. Mr. Speaker, the court rejected Venezuela's objections and decided again that it will adjudicate upon the merits of the claims of Guyana. We, of course, welcomed the court's decision. Venezuela, for its part, indicated its dissatisfaction. On the 9th of December 2024, Guyana submitted to the court its final written brief on the merits of the case. Venezuela's final written submission is due to be filed on August 11, 2025. Thereafter, the court will schedule oral hearings on the merits of the case, to be followed by the court's deliberations and issuance of its final judgment, which will be binding on the parties under international law. Mr. Speaker, you're also aware that on 2 occasions, Guyana was forced to request from the International Court of Justice a protection against Venezuela, and was successful in each of its applications. In the first instance, the Venezuelan National Assembly passed a resolution on September 21st, 2023, calling for a referendum regarding enforcement of Venezuela's claim to the so-called Guyana's Essequibo region. We had condemned the passing of that resolution as illegal, since it violates the 1966 Geneva Agreement and is inconsistent with the United Nations Secretary General's decision to submit the question of the validity of the international boundary to the International Court of Justice for adjudication. Mr. Speaker, Venezuela's decision to conduct the referendum also drew condemnation from the Organization of American States, or the OAS, the Commonwealth, and the CARICOM community. On the 23rd of October 2023, Venezuela published 5 questions to be answered by the people of Venezuela in the referendum scheduled for December 3rd, 2023. The most outrageous questions that were put to the Venezuelan people sought to determine whether they agree with the so-called creation of the state of Guyana Essequibo, the incorporation of that state into the map of Venezuela, and Venezuela's historical position of not recognizing the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice as a means of settlement of the controversy. Mr. Speaker, this Honorable House passed a motion on the 6th of November 2023 in response to that threat. We approached the International Court of Justice for provisional measures, specifically to request that Venezuela be ordered not to take any actions that will be called for by the referendum, including especially creation of a new Venezuelan state consisting of Guyana's Essequibo region and incorporating it into Venezuela's territory, or granting Venezuelan citizenship or identity cards to the population, because these actions would amount to an unlawful annexation of Guyana's territory, in violation of the most fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the United Nations Charter. Mr. Speaker, the oral arguments of Guyana and Venezuela were presented to the International Court on the 14th and 15th of November 2023, respectively. On the 1st of December 2023, the International Court of Justice unanimously issued its order, stating that inter alia, 1, pending a final decision in the case, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from taking any action which would modify the situation that currently prevails in the territory of dispute, whereby the Cooperative Republic of Guyana administers and exercises control over that area. And 2, both parties shall refrain from any action which might aggravate or extend the dispute before the court or make it more difficult to resolve. Mr. Speaker, on the second occasion, it came to the attention of the government that on the 7th of January 2025, President Maduro announced that Venezuela will hold elections for a governor and legislative council of the so-called Guyana Essequibo state, to be elected by the people of that said state, which is the name Venezuela has given to Guyana's Essequibo region. Mr. Speaker, despite Guyana's protest, the elections have been scheduled for May 25th, 2025. In response to Venezuela's announced plans and actions, on March 6, 2025, Guyana filed a new request for provisional measures with the International Court of Justice, seeking an order prohibiting Venezuela from carrying out elections for our sovereign territory. We pointed out that Venezuela's plan to hold elections in the territory would flagrantly violate the court's order of December 1st, 2023. Mr. Speaker, on May 1st, 2025, the International Court of Justice issued its order. In this order, the court, 1, unanimously reaffirms the provisional measures indicated in its order of December 1st, 2023, which should be immediately and effectively implemented. And two, by a vote of 12 to 3, indicated the following provisional measure. Pending a final decision in the case, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from conducting elections or preparing to conduct elections in the territory of dispute, which the Cooperative Republic of Guyana currently administers and over which it exercises control. Mr. Speaker, I will take a moment here to address two critical points about the court's decision of May 1st. The first is that the three votes of the judges, Shohi, Bandari, and Nolte, against the provisional measure are not votes against Guyana. In their dissenting opinion, the judges pointed out that they voted against the provisional measure only for a procedural reason. They indicated that they agree in substance with Venezuela that Venezuela must refrain from conducting elections or preparing to conduct elections for our territory. The procedural reason was that the judges felt that the order of the 1st of December 2023 already prohibits the actions that are now planned by Venezuela, and that accordingly, there is no need for an additional order. 12 judges agreed that the existing order prohibited Venezuela's planned actions, but voted for an additional order, which brought even more relevance and importance to the matter before the court. Mr. Speaker, the second issue is respect to the order that I wish to address is an important segue into the next topic that I wish to discuss, which is the role of diplomacy and the role of the government in preserving Guyana's territorial integrity. In paragraph 39 of its order, the court observes that the acts taken or planned to be taken by Venezuela after the court's order of December 1st, 2023, have given rise to expressions of concern by the Security Council in a statement dated the 15th of April 2024, and I quote, about the possible escalation of tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. Mr. Speaker, you will recall that on April 3rd, 2024, Venezuela promulgated the organic law in defense of the so-called Guyana Essequibo, purporting to formally incorporate our Essequibo region into Venezuela, breaching the order of December 1st, 2023. On April 9th of 2024, the United Nations Security Council facilitated Guyana's request for a private meeting of the Council to address the promulgation of the law by Venezuela purporting to annex more than 2/3 of Guyana's sovereign territory and make it part of Venezuela. Following the meeting, the Security Council issued a statement on April 15th, 2024, expressing their concern about the possible escalation of tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. They urged the parties to exercise maximum restraint, reminding them of the obligations to comply with the order issued by the International Court of Justice on December 1st of 2023. The Security Council also reaffirmed the importance of upholding the principles of respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, and the prohibition on the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of another state, as enshrined in Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter. Mr. Speaker, as far as I can recollect, that statement by the Security Council is the first and only statement that the Security Council has ever made with respect to the Guyana-Venezuela controversy, which through the strength of Guyana's diplomacy has now become part of the Council's agenda under the agenda item Threats to International Peace and Security. The court observed that it was the actions of Venezuela that concerned the Security Council. Mr. Speaker, we continue to address this matter at the diplomatic level. Ghana has used every United Nations General Assembly since 2020 to reaffirm our position on the controversy. We continue to engage the CARICOM, the OAS, the Commonwealth, our bilateral partners, on all of which have issued strong statements supporting Guyana's sovereignty and the International Court of Justice process. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation continues to improve its public relations strategy to educate the public and counter Venezuelan misinformation. We have engaged in direct outreach through our diplomats abroad to bolster our support and understanding of the legal process. Mr. Speaker, Venezuela has again rejected the ICJ's order, asserting that the court lacks jurisdiction over the matter and that it intends to carry out its planned elections. While our intelligence is that there is currently no physical activity taking place in any of our communities close to the border, or suggests that there is any preparation for elections to be conducted in our Essequibo, it is important for Venezuela to understand that Guyana will not be bullied, threatened, or intimidated to surrender any portion of our patrimony. We remain committed to international law and the peaceful resolution of this matter through the International Court process, and we call upon Venezuela to comply with the court's legally binding orders and to refrain from actions that would destabilize this region and violate Guyana's territorial integrity. Of the will of the Guyanese people. It is a message to our international partners that Guyana remains steadfast in our commitment to peace, but unwavering in our defense of sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, before I close, let me take a moment to recognize the leadership of His Excellency the President. Let me also thank our officers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation here in Guyana, who have been working diligently in developing and promoting Guyana's diplomacy as directed by His Excellency the President. Let me also thank all our diplomatic staff at the missions across jurisdictions. And last but not least, I would like to also thank our legal team abroad and the legal team here in Georgetown, the AG, who's been very integral in appearances at the International Court in The Hague. Mr. Speaker, let history record that in this moment, we stood firm, we stood united, and we stood resolute. Let it be recorded that when our sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country was challenged, our unity was unbreakable. Let it also be recorded that when it mattered most, we raised our voices in dignity and determination for our dear land of Guyana. I put this motion to this National Assembly for its adoption by this Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now for the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Aubrey Norton.
Mr. Speaker, when I was a child and at school and the class wasn't paying attention, a concession. We never did, and we never will. If probably more than the government, but you choose to exclude us to your own peril. On this issue, unilateralism will not succeed. Mr. Speaker, Venezuela is an adversary who we must confront together. And it is unfortunate that this government refuses to do that. But let me put on the records immediately that we believe the arbitral award of 1899 settled our border issue. We believe that the so-called elections in the Essequibo should be condemned. And one of the marked failures of this resolution is that it failed to condemn. And had you consulted us, we would have told you that it will be remiss of you if you do not condemn Venezuela's attempt to convene elections in our territory. At no stage, at no point in this motion, you see that condemnation. We support our soldiers and condemn Venezuela's aggression against them. Even as we bemoan the fact that we urge this government to recapitalize the Guyana Defense Force, and it has failed to do so. Mr. Speaker, let us note that the distinguished Guyanese diplomat and author, Mr. Cedric Joseph, noted that, and I quote, Brazil is only one of the neighboring states against which Venezuela has not advanced a territorial claim, unquote. One would have expected that the government would have outlined a clear foreign policy approach to ensure we continuously mobilize the support of those countries, noting what Venezuela portends. Note as well, Venezuela has problems with Caribbean countries with which it has maritime boundaries. We need to, in a structured way, engage these countries and promote our cause of protecting our sovereignty and territorial integrity. You know, Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the minister, I thought Guyana was being run by the International Court of Justice. Everything that he said is what the Court of Justice will do. But he has said nothing about what the government will do. And it is the biggest limitation of this motion. This motion is very limited to the extent that it fails to outline the actions that Guyana will take. Go through the resolve clauses, and they're going to share this here, share this there, but nothing of what the Guyana government will do. Mr. Speaker, and listening to the minister, I felt the Guyana government has a vacancy for a foreign minister. Mr. Speaker, in expressing our support for the last motion, I said the following, and I quote, we have a caveat. It is that we urge the government to put the question of the education of this matter on a permanent basis. We believe that there has to be continuous permanent education as it relates to this matter, unquote. The government did not heed our call. And so, there is no proper public education program to educate the people of Guyana and the world. Mr. Speaker, let us recall that we call for the establishment of a commission on the territorial controversy, and that commission must involve a wide cross-section of stakeholders. Let me remind this august body, the government rejected the idea. They averred the view that the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs can serve the same purpose. I hope you remember that. In response to the government's position, we stated at the time that the committee was not meeting. The government promised that it will meet to discuss foreign policy issues, inclusive of the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. It met once and never again. In our second meeting with His Excellency the President, the issue of the non-functioning of the committee and the question of rotating the chairmanship was discussed in the presence of the foreign minister. The foreign minister committed to convene a meeting and hand over the chairmanship to the opposition. Until now, this has not happened. The government failed to honor its obligation and manifested the usual incompetence and arrogance. How do you expect to obtain our cooperation when you fail to honor your word? How do you expect to obtain cooperation when something as simple as convening a meeting to hand over the chairmanship you cannot do? As a government, you manifest no interest in working with the opposition, and now we are compelled to reciprocate. You cannot choose not to work with us, but selectively decide when you want to work with us. I hope you enjoy the reciprocation. Mr. Speaker, education is critical. We must tell all Guyanese and the world that since in the 1960s, in the case of Honduras versus Nicaragua, the International Court of Justice ruled, and I quote, "A state was precluded from challenging previously established boundaries, even though defined irregularly and defective legally, if that state had recognized or acquiesced in these lines or failed to protest against them, particularly when the contagious state relied on good faith upon such acquiescence and had considered the matter finally settled," unquote. Venezuela did just that. For this fact and numerous reasons, we are confident in the victory of good over evil and right over wrong, and support our foreign policy approach and support our case before the ICJ, which we expect to succeed. We have no doubt that the court will rule in our favor. It is in this context that this motion, and I want to pull it up, should have been strengthened in the third whereas clause. The motion should have noted as well that Venezuela accepted the arbitral award for 62 years and even produced a stamp with our present border and celebrated the fact that Guyana lost territory to them. Had we included this in the third whereas clause, we would have strengthened this motion. But as it stands, the inclusion of this fact would have strengthened the motion and serve as very useful information to our people and the world. At minimum, the motion needs to state that the government will take action to ensure patriotism is instilled in Guyanese. There is no action in this motion, none whatsoever. The motion should have stated specifically that the resolution must be circulated to all African states and the African Union, and that special envoys will be sent out to inform and mobilize support for the protection of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Mr. Speaker, we cannot ignore the significance of the support of 54 African countries. I take it as an oversight, and the government will rectify it. Mr. Speaker, in this House, we call for the use of oil resources to use as part of our diplomatic offensive against Venezuela and to mobilize countries. The government failed to do it. Probably the major flaw is that this motion does not state what concrete actions the government will take moving forward. It's a banal motion that will merely obligate the government to forward the resolution to a few selected states and institutions. We can and must do better. How could we pass a motion as critical as this, and all we are agreeing to in the resolve clause is to send the motion here and there? It makes no sense. Let us recall that in our last engagement on this issue in Parliament, we recommended that special attention be given to border communities, since they are in the forefront of our defense. To date, nothing has happened. I'm saying to you here, Mr. Speaker, that the government has failed in terms of every promise it would have made. In preparation for the previous motion on the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy, government consulted with us, and we arrived at a joint motion which enjoyed the support of both parties. Today, you choose a different path. This time around, there was no consultation, Lipsy. You send a motion demanding that our chief whip sign it. We reject such callousness out of hand. We are therefore not obligated to support this motion, since it is you, the government, that has breached our trust and operated arbitrarily. We also recommended that because of the nature of the threat, we should have continuous education. You failed here again. We suggested that we send special envoys to Latin America and the Caribbean nations to inform them and to solicit their support for our cause. You failed again. You believe in parachute diplomacy. Touchdown at a conference, get support. You need to do more than that. We recommended that government take out in Spanish full-page advertisements in key Latin American newspapers. It was not done. You failed the people of Guyana again. You must recall that Venezuela is a Spanish-speaking country, and we need to find ways and means of communicating with Spanish Latin America. We pointed out that it was the era of social media, and we should use social media to promote our cause. You failed to develop such a program. I want to tell you, Kwame, I heard that the president wanted to do it, but you were the tool that caused it not to happen. You are well prepared to use social media to attack our opponents, but you are unwilling to use it to promote and protect our sovereignty and territorial integrity. As a government, you prove to be unpatriotic and not worthy of our support. We recommended a national commission on the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. You rejected the proposal, contending that the said work could be done by the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs, and promised to convene and have regular meetings of that committee. You want to know when we did that? Go back to the last motion that we were drafting. And your minister could tell you, we placed it in there. And he engaged us to say, okay, let's not fight over it. Let us agree and the parliamentary committee will function. So don't raise that. You had one meeting, no more. You failed again. In a recent meeting with His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs undertook to turn over the chairmanship of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs to the opposition, as parliamentary rules dictate. He never did. A failed promise. Mr. Speaker, it was also agreed that the opposition will be kept abreast with developments vis-a-vis the territorial controversy. You never did. It took another shooting incident at the border for you to engage the opposition. You are inactive until Venezuela gets active. That is unacceptable. This government cannot be serious. I said before, we recommended a recapitalization of the Guyana Defense Force. Little or nothing was done. My understanding is that the Army aircraft flies more government officials than Army personnel. There are also reports that the soldiers at our borders are not well taken care of. This must end. Mr. Speaker, this government likes to talk about patriotism. The government calls for patriotism rings hollow. It is difficult to get patriotism in a police state. I want to repeat that for you. It is difficult to get patriotism in a police state. Mr. Speaker, the renowned political scientist and author Andrew Haywood notes that, I quote, "In a police state, the police force operates outside of a legal framework and is accountable to neither the courts nor the general public." He further says, police states have totalitarian features in that the excessive and unregulated power that is vested in the police is designed to curtail civil liberties and create a climate of fear and intimidation in which all aspects of social existence is brought under political control. He continued, however, a police state is not run by the police force in the same way a military regime is controlled by the armed forces. Rather, the police force acts as a private army that is controlled by and acts in the interest of the ruling elite. That is what we have here in Guyana. This definition of a police state aptly describes Guyana today.
Mr. Speaker.
And for this reason,
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Home Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I want to condemn in the strongest terms
Honorable Minister, you may get a chance to do your condemnation when you respond. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, there's an old saying that the truth hurts. I can understand roads. The definition of a police state, this definition of a police state aptly describes Guyana today. And for this reason, patriotism is in crisis, and we cannot support this authoritarian and totalitarian regime. We support the people of Guyana in our quest to protect our sovereignty and territorial integrity. However, we will do the people of Guyana a disservice if we support the lawlessness that now characterizes Guyana. And when you want to doubt it's a police state, turn and look at the case of Adriana Young, in which the police didn't operate independently and investigate. More than a week passed and they hadn't taken one statement. And it's a clear case of protecting the elite. Whether you like it or not, the cover-up is now uncovered. Mr. Speaker, all of us know that justice eludes little Adriana Young and the other victims like her because we live in a police state.
Yes, Robinson.
Mr. Speaker, as members of the government and His Excellency speak about patriotism, I want to say this to you. Patriotism does not come from the sky. It comes from education and involvement in patriotic activities. I mean, we're so ridiculous. Venezuela is threatening us on the 25th, and we're holding a concert. Patriotism comes when people are being treated fairly in their own country. Most Guyanese do not believe that they are treated fairly. It comes from people's trust in government and national institutions. In Guyana today, there is little or no such trust. We live in a society in which all and sundry know, don't run ropes, that the CCTV cameras work conveniently. If the crime is committed by the elite, their families, their friends and favorites, the cameras do not work. They only work and come alive to prosecute and persecute the poor and the powerless. This is sad, but it is true. We live in a society in which the government seeks to instill fear and wants everyone to kowtow to them. Such a system does not produce patriotism. It produces people who just want to get rid of the government. Here is where most Guyanese are today. They want to see the back of the government. Patriotism comes when people feel a sense of belonging. It comes when people believe they have a stake in the national cake. Guyanese believe and know they get the crumbs while the ruling elite, family, friends, and favorite can shop in Dubai at the expense of the people. It comes when people feel they are treated equally before the law, when there is the existence of the rule of law. Sadly, there is none in Guyana. The law is for the ruling elite, their family, their friends, and their favorites. Patriotism does not come when you misuse the law and incarcerate innocent people under a terrorism law. That produces hostility. Who use it? You. You use it. It was put in place by a government that expected people to live by the letter of the law, not to misuse it. You are misusing a law that was put in place to deal with terrorism. It is you. It is you. It is Robeson Ben. It is your government that is misusing the law. That's all we're saying to you. Patriotism does not come if you charge looters with terrorism. You need to charge them under the appropriate law and end the abuse of the anti-terrorism law. While we do not support looting and violence, we must condemn the government for the misuse of the law and the abuse of power. The law in itself is not wrong. The law in itself is not wrong. It is not properly implemented. Patriotism comes when people know their country, not when they cannot afford to travel their country. Patriotism does not come when it is cheaper to go to the Caribbean than to let them. Patriotism emerges if it is instilled from childhood. It cannot come if you remove. Patriotism cannot come. It cannot come if you remove the singing of patriotic songs from the life of the society, especially the schools. You are destroying the basic practices that lead to patriotism. Patriotism does not come under totalitarianism and dictatorship like we have in Guyana. It does not emerge when government wants to control all aspects of people's lives, as is the current case. It comes when there is a sense of belonging. Guyanese do not feel they belong in this society. It comes when there is the rule of law, and there is none. It does not come with a Speaker of the National Assembly that operates in a partisan way and refuses.
Honorable member, this is a good time for you to seek an extension to conclude. And you may want to watch how you tread on the speaker.
No, I did said the speaker. I never said the speaker. I said a speaker. I'm very careful in the choice of language.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Speaker. I do move that the honourable member be given minutes to continue his presentation.
Honorable members, you may continue.
It does not come with a Speaker of the National Assembly that operates.
I urge that you move off from that line.
Mr. Speaker, a National Assembly needs at least at minimum a modicum of impartiality. Mr. Speaker, patriotism does not come when your parliament is a farce. I hope I have offended no one by speaking the truth. I'm not speaking to Venezuela. I've already spoken to Venezuela. I've already said to Venezuela, we support the arbitral award. I've already said to Venezuela, we condemn their action. But I am saying to you in this house now that you are not inclusive and you do not deserve the support. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. As an opposition, we have consistently supported the government on the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. And we continue to be supportive of the cause. We have said the arbitral award is final. We have said that before. Now that when you finish airing off yourself, let me say this to you. We continue to support the case. We continue to protect our sovereignty and territorial integrity. But we cannot support a government that continues to disrespect the people of Guyana. You know, Mr. Speaker, you heard that, right? Mr. Speaker, you heard that? That piece of parliamentary language? Mr. Speaker, the government is manifesting why they cannot get our support. We say without fear of contradiction. We support Guyana in its quest to ensure the arbitral award is respected. We condemn Venezuela for what they are doing, but we also must condemn the Guyana government for what they are doing to us. The Honorable Minister, in speaking, in chastising Venezuela, said the people of Guyana have a right to live free from fear. We agree, but practice it. Don't come with empty words telling us nonsense. Your motion makes passing reference to the 25th of May, where an election, a farcical election, is supposed to be held. Mr. Speaker, I expected in the presentation that the minister would have been outlining what we will be doing to keep Venezuela at bay. You keep telling us what the ICJ will do. We agree. And so, Mr. Speaker, the enemy, let me address you, Mr. Ramson. The greatest enemy this country has is the government of Guyana. It doesn't change. It doesn't change when you broadcast your tragedy as well. Because what you were talking about, you have outlined, you do not understand, young Ramson. A strategy, you can identify the broad elements of an approach. Let me give you an example so that you become a little more educated. You can say that we will take action to establish a people's militia. One, simple. That we will have a robust PR campaign. That we will put resources into border communities so that they are more resilient. You could have said that in this era of information technology, we will invest in technology to ensure that we can help monitor our borders. That is not give away a strategy. Mr. Speaker, I want to make another point. It is reported that in the Rupununi, a security company, without checking, that company has Venezuelans bearing arms. You signal your strategy. When you do that, you signal your strategy. We have a government that can't even give us the figures. One time is 23,000 Venezuelans. The next time is 100,000. You know, that's not give away the strategy. That is showing stupidity. Let us be clear. I'm saying to you, as a government, you need to instill hope in the people of Guyana. Nothing that has been said today instills hope. You come over as a hopeless bunch, depending on the ICJ. We support the movement to the ICJ, but we are well aware that Venezuela doesn't honor agreements, and therefore you should have already been outlining your strategy as to what Guyanese need to do after the pronouncement. But you come like a descriptive historian relating dates, but cannot tell us anything of substance. Mr. Speaker, I would recommend to the government that they withdraw this motion and let us work together on a joint motion. Mr. Speaker, we would not have been at this point we would not have been at this point if the government had taken the approach we took over the years of engaging the opposition and let us agree on a joint statement. I can say this to you. I don't want you to agree. Good. So if you don't want to agree, why you want we support? If you don't want us to be involved, why you want our support? And so, Mr. Speaker, I close by making a few comments. We wish to express our appreciation and gratitude to all those countries and organizations that have expressed support for our cause and are contributing to the protection of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Mr. Speaker, all Guyanese know, and we are well aware, that Essequibo belongs to us. And we will do everything to protect our sovereignty and territorial integrity. However, we cannot overlook the fact that we live in a police state. We cannot overlook the fact that the state has been criminalized. We cannot overlook the incompetence of this government, its squandering of our resources, the lack of a plan to confront Venezuelan aggression, and their unbridled penchant for domination and control. We cannot support a motion that is weak and only resolves to circulate documents and fails to do anything that is action-oriented and give hope that we will treat Venezuela as an adversary who wants our territory and ensure Venezuela is kept at bay. We cannot support this innocuous motion in its present form. Mr. Speaker, we urge you to come back to the table and let us work on a motion that all Guyanese will be happy with. It is for that reason this is the farthest we will go in this presentation. Thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've just had a perfect example of a shameful demonstration of patriotism. A most unpatriotic address, not to this House only, but to the people of Guyana, by one who supposedly is remunerated to perform the duties of leader of the opposition in this House. Mr. Speaker, a house divided cannot stand. And what we had there was a perfect example of an attempt to divide the people of Guyana. The phrase, "a house divided cannot stand," is a proverb that means an entity, like a family, organization, or country with internal conflicts and disagreements will weaken and fail. We shall not be weakened and fail as a nation, Mr. Speaker. Our people are united on this cause. The only people who seems to have a difference and unpatriotic is the leader of the opposition, and perhaps those who are following him.
That's right.
And they will be left behind. They will be left behind as we seek to defend Guyana and to develop Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the sovereignty of Guyana over its internationally recognized territory is crucial for maintaining peace and stability, not only in Guyana, but in the whole Latin American and Caribbean region. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, for Guyana's government and citizens alike to support and uphold this sovereignty to ensure national unity and international respect. Mr. Speaker, if the members of the opposition just surf social media, they will see that through the length and breadth of Guyana today, our school children at nursery, primary, and secondary levels are demonstrating the patriotism that the opposition should have been demonstrating. Our children know better than those who are paid to keep the government on its toes. They're paid as elected officials to represent the opposition. And our children today are sending a strong message to those members of the opposition that we know 83,000 square miles belongs to all of us in Guyana, resident in Guyana and in the diaspora. The only people who seems not to know that and not ready to support that are the people who just left this house, walked out of this house, and perhaps is downstairs awaiting the bell to take lunch. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition talked about the Geneva Convention and Mr. Forbes Sampson Barnum, the then Prime Minister, signing that convention. What he didn't tell this House is that Mr. Barnum did not consult anyone, none of the stakeholders, none of the Guyanese, none of the opposition leaders at the time. He just went ahead and signed. Mr. Speaker, we have come a far way from those undemocratic practices. This country was returned to democracy in 1992 after 28 years of undemocratic rule by the same Lyndon Forbes Sampson Barnum government. Mr. Speaker, those, according to a famous philosopher, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. Mr. Speaker, as a people, as a government, collectively, we must never forget the past. And therefore, we will not be condemned to repeating those undemocratic practices of the PNC, now redressed as APNU, with their partners, the AFC. That formed the last government, a reminder of the undemocratic rule in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, they were democratically elected in 2015, but we had 5 years of undemocratic rule by the APNU, AFC in Guyana. 5 years of executive lawlessness. And that is the only reason why they could come to this House and tell us that they are not supporting this motion. Mr. Speaker, in draft, this motion was submitted through the right course or the right channels to the Chief Whip, requesting that they read the draft, that they submit their amendments, and that they support a joint motion before this House. In the House today, we had a leader of the opposition who came and said he did not see the draft of the motion. The motion was submitted in keeping with the deadline without the value of any amendment and any support by the opposition. But yet, posted on social media was a diatribe from the leader of the opposition on the motion that the entire country is read and obviously is in total disagreement with. Mr. Speaker, we have a people's militia. We may have had a name change to the Guyana National Reserve, but it remains in essence a case of every citizen being allowed to be a soldier, every citizen to be allowed to defend Guyana. And Mr. Speaker, the Guyana National Reserve is as strong as it has ever been in any time in Guyana. And these are the information that the leader of the opposition must come to this House with. Mr. Speaker, we have an ongoing PR campaign. And if you listen to the man in the street, the bus or minibus or bus driver, the hire car driver, the maid, the school children, today in Guyana, the market vendor, today in Guyana, every Guyanese is better informed about the Guyana-Venezuela controversy than any other time before in Guyana. Perhaps more than the opposition. Mr. Speaker, every year around independence, we have a set of national-oriented activities to celebrate our independence. And this year is no exception. We are celebrating our 59th anniversary of independence. We have flag raising, which will be held in Region 6. We have Flag Day, which will be held tomorrow. The opposition was asked to get on board by no other than yours truly, Mr. Speaker. And they refused. And yet they come to this House and try to tell us that we're keeping them out and we're a police state. We're undemocratic. Mr. Speaker, this is the same opposition that lost the election in 2020 and tried to barefacedly hold on to power. They have attempted to rig the election, an election that was observed by observers not only from CARICOM, from the OAS, and from wider far the international community, including the EU, the Commonwealth, the EU. Mr. Speaker, we spent 5 months agreeing to a recount that verified everything that we had suspected as a people. That the opposition, who was then in government, was attempted to rig the election, to continue in office as an undemocratic government. And yet they come in this House today to tell us that we are a police state. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that they live in an alternate universe. 5 years and counting. Mr. Speaker, in moving the motion, our Minister of Foreign Affairs would have given the history of this whole controversy. As a nation, we went through 27 years of the good officer process. We have kept this controversy within the confines of the United Nations Secretary General purview to find a solution to this matter. We've had 27 years from 1990 to 2017 of the good officers process. In 2018, the UN Secretary General determined that the good officers process had not resolved the territorial dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. And thus, Mr. Speaker, Venezuela's determination to uphold this conflict persists to this day. Mr. Speaker, it was the United Nations Secretary General that referred the matter to the International Court of Justice. to determine the validity of the claim. Guyana has dutifully filed a request with the ICJ in that regard. Venezuela's claim at the time was that Guterres had exceeded his authority, the same authority that had been relied upon and trusted for 27 years during the good offices process, and further refused to recognize the ICJ jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, Guyana continued to follow the rule of law and invoke Article 53 of the ICJ statute, allowing the court to rule in their favor if one party failed to participate. In December 2020, the court established its jurisdiction in the case. We are well aware, Mr. Speaker, that in this current time, much of Venezuela's contention stems from Guyana's growing oil and gas industry, following the world-class oil discoveries in Guyana's territorial waters. Venezuela's claim includes the waters of the Essequibo, where much of those oil discoveries exist. In its most recent development, Venezuela's unlawful persistence is seen in the unanimous approval by the Venezuelan National Authority for a referendum that you heard was held in 2023. Mr. Speaker, we want to emphasize that Venezuela's refusal to accept the 1899 award and its ongoing hostile actions and insistence on acting in opposition to the award's provisions erode the fundamental principles of international law. Upholding these principles, Mr. Speaker, is crucial for preserving global peace, security, and stability. Mr. Speaker, a statement made in September 2023, the CARICOM community voiced deep concerns regarding Venezuela's threat to use force against Guyana's licensed operations in its waters, describing it as a process, and Mr. Speaker, demanding peaceful conflict resolution in keeping with the principles of peaceful resolution of conflict. Mr. Speaker, support was also provided by the European Union, who also expressed confidence in the ICJ authority in settling this matter and urged parties to avoid unilateral actions that could escalate the situation. Mr. Speaker, we deeply appreciate the solidarity and understanding demonstrated by the international community, the international bodies, their unwavering confidence in pursuing a lawful and peaceful path, along which their recognition of the ICJ jurisdiction is a clear endorsement of the shared values of justice, fairness, and the rule of law that unite us all. As democratic nations of the world, we remain steadfast, and they must remain steadfast in upholding the sanctity of sovereign borders and the principles governing international relations. Mr. Speaker, we did in the past, and we again today call upon the international community to continue their support for our just cause. We urge all nations to recognize that this issue transcends a bilateral dispute. It is about upholding the international legal order and the principles that bind us all. It's about ensuring that justice triumphs over aggression and intimidation. Mr. Speaker, as a country, as a people, we must together urge Venezuela's current government to respect the ICJ process. The ICJ remains an impartial and reputable institution. The ICJ is well equipped to objectively assess the situation and ensure a fair resolution. We also, as a nation, maintain our trust in the rule of law and have confidence that the ICJ will uphold the principles of justice and respect for sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, Guyana know and have denounced unlawful acts to illegally elect a government for Guyana Essequibo. Mr. Speaker, to elect a governor for Guyana Essequibo is unlawful because the state Guyana Essequibo does not exist. There is no such state in Guyana. Venezuela has not demonstrated or exercised any political or legal control and jurisdiction over such a state, since it does not exist in Guyana. A state that has no legal status in the sovereign state of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Instead, Mr. Speaker, what we have are elected officials at the regional democratic level that exercise political and legal control over the entire Essequibo in the 10 administrative regions, and those regions that comprise or shares that part of Guyana known as Essequibo. Regions 1, Regions 2, Region 3, Region 6, Region 7, Region 8, and Region 9. We have 7 regional chairmen and regional democratic councils that exercise political jurisdiction over the Essequibo region. And so it is, and so it shall be. Mr. Speaker, the seas of Guyana's territory would amount to the grave international crime of aggression. It is essential to understand that neither a government nor its people, under international law, possess the authority to seize, annex, or encroach upon the territory of another nation. International law strongly prohibits such actions. Guyana formally rejects Venezuela's persistent attempts to undermine the sovereignty and integrity of our nation. Mr. Speaker, from 2020, we have commenced a structured recapitalization of our defense force to enhance our defense of Guyana, to better define aggression on our borders, both land and maritime borders. Mr. Speaker, this recapitalization is ongoing and has increased our security of our western border. This recapitalization, along with increased security cooperation with our hemispheric and international partners, has led us today to be better able to exercise enhanced maritime domain awareness and increase surveillance on our western frontiers. Mr. Speaker, one would expect that defense, being a bipartisan issue, if there are any doubts in the minds of the opposition, they should discuss it at the forum that is defined and organized for such discussion, and not to come into this house and to tried to condemn the government for not doing enough for the Guyana Defense Force. We have, and I'm speaking here as a member of the Defense Board, we have, in a sustained manner, in a sustained and democratic approach, listened to the Defense Force and has provided the necessary budgetary support for their continued development and expansion and recapitalization to better able to define aggression on our frontiers. Mr. Speaker, the endurance of this controversy has been excessive, and Venezuela's unrelenting pursuit of unfounded territorial claims not only insults our nation, but also undermines the cherished principles of justice and sovereignty held by the international community. Mr. Speaker, all Guyana and all Guyanese at home and in the diaspora must continue to denounce these actions with the utmost strength and urge the global community to stand by us as we pursue a peaceful and equitable resolution through the International Court of Justice. Together, we will secure the triumph of justice and preserve our nation's sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, again, as I started, I must end by saying a house divided cannot stand. As a nation, we are not and must never be divided on this important issue of our sovereignty. And on that point, Mr. Speaker, I want to end by saying I support this motion reaffirming the sovereignty of Guyana over its internationally recognized territory, all 83,000 square miles. Essequibo belongs to Guyana. Essequibo belongs to us. Our Essequibo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable members, let us take a suspension now and we will return at 1:23.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is with struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on night. Though we may criticize it, this is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass.